We are up to our fourth box of Impossible Lands minis, and this one may be the most universally appealing of all of them. Impossible Foes gives you a bunch of bad guys to throw at your adventuring party, and there's a heavy emphasis here on the undead. You can totally use these in whatever game you play, but one mini in this set encapsulates what I love most about Pathfinder, and I'm going to try to entice you to pick up another Pathfinder book as we go through this. And of course, we'll get Mr. Mark Moreland back for another little mini chat. So let's get to it. Gird your loins because we need to go face some impossible foes. Before we jump in, let me tell you a little bit about the animated cards from our sponsor Hit Point Press. Recently we've talked about their two in-game items, the Deck of Many Things and the Deck of Illusions. Well, Series 2 of the animated cards just dropped with cards for all those high-level spells. And of course, they look incredible, but they also have two other decks that are great for Game Masters. The Deck of Animated Conditions can help remind you and your players about the effects of any lingering conditions that may have acquired, and being handed a shiny card can soften the blow when you're stunned, and the Deck of Animated Townsfolk gives you NPCs at your fingertips when you most need them. And these folks are just dripping with personality. You can pick up all the animated cards using our link below the video or at animatedspells.com.
Let's start with the Eunemvro, who is really only foes to undead beings or those who are suffused with negative energy and their allies. They are humanoids with the head and feet of an alpaca. They tend to be quite good at martial arts and claim to hail from the positive energy plane, even though they don't seem to be able to get there on their own. They do have the ability to channel positive energy into a cascading wave of light and pain. They are level 5 creatures. One type of undead being who probably doesn't concern himself too much with the Eunemvros is the Nosferatu, ancient vampires who are no longer able to create progeny. Bestiary 3 gives you instructions for turning a living creature stat block into a Nosferatu, noting that they should be at least 8th level though. The Malefactor stat block is in the book. They're known for spreading the plague of the ancients in their wake. So when you die, the first thing you have to do is wait in line. I know you're probably not too surprised about that. Pharasma must judge each soul individually, and it takes time. Even gods need sandwich breaks from time to time. If a departed soul somehow gets shunted out of the queue, they become a phantom, ethereal but not corrupted, still retaining their memories from life. They generally just want to find their way back to the River of Souls to be sent to their final destinations. Bestiary 3 teaches you how to create phantom stat blocks and provides the Phantom Knight stat block as an example. These are usually cavaliers or knights who died for their causes. This little adorable undead fellow is a Skeletal Attendant. This little guy is unique in that I'm pretty sure he's not based on any particular stat block, but on a creature who appears on the cover of the Book of the Dead, who was just too cute not to turn into a mini. You can really use him for whatever skeletal stat block you want. There's even a Skeletal Ancestry in the Book of the Dead if you want this to be your PC mini, and that is a decision I could definitely get behind. These two are Skeletal Soldiers, mindless undead who continue to follow orders in death. These are your basic skeletons really, and if you're looking for a few more, including those based on non-human ancestries, might I recommend the Undead Army Skeleton Pack, which we just reviewed recently. You can see that in the corner of your screen up there. Skeletal Soldiers are particularly good at defending a particular location. Their level 1 stat block is in the Book of the Dead. Of course, you can also use these as PC minis if you choose the Skeleton Ancestry, and the Undead Ancestry options are pretty wild in that book. In general, you're harmed by positive energy and healed by negative energy, so keep those clerics away. Most mundane healing won't work on you, and you'll feel an undead hunger, whether that's for blood or bones or flesh or boba or whatever, depends on exactly what kind of undead creature you are. Perhaps my favorite mini in the set is the Ulgrem-Axaan, and not really for the mini itself, which is fine as far as undead shiny crocodiles go, but because of how much good storytelling he brings to your games. You see, the Ulgrem-Axaan is featured in the Monsters of Myth book, and gets 6 full pages of lore and adventure hooks and stat blocks and more. It is the last of its kind, a centuries-old reptile turned undead under the Axaneer River in Geb. Now it is a creature of myth, and your adventurers may just find a way to bring the species back to life, if they dare. Finally, we have something out of left field. This set has a ton of undead, but this is a mighty Tane, a powerful creature created eons ago by the eldest of the First World. They're described as resembling 6-limbed bears with bull-like horns, draconic scales, and a fire-breathing serpent for a tail. Each Thrasfyr is wrapped in animated chains that are linked to its mind. With a 17th level stat block, the Thrasfyr is the toughest foe in this pack. Let's learn more about our impossible foes here from Paizo's Director of Brand Strategy and the fellow in charge of putting the sets together, Mr. Mark Moreland. All right, Mark, thank you for coming back again. Today we're talking about impossible foes. What are your first thoughts on this set?
It's impossible. That's my only thought. So as I've said before, this was supposed to be a randomized booster set, and so one of the fun challenges that we had, or as Eric Mona calls them, problatunities, was to figure out how we were going to break it up into sets that could be produced for about the same amount of money on WizKids' side, but that were thematically linked together enough that someone would see them on the shelf and say, oh, I can see why those all go together. I'm going to pick that up. And this was one of the more challenging ones because you've got a bunch of skeletons, which these were supposed to be the common sort of army builders that you get in a booster box, and then you've also got the Thrasfyr, which is a Tane, I think it's a level 17 or 18 fey creature that looks like a demon. It's all about fire. Doesn't really fit with skeletons. So we went with just a foes title, and it's impossible foes because there's no way these two are working together. There's no way you're going to face these in the same encounter. But if a GM does come up with a way to do that, please let me know what it was, because I'm interested to see how this inspires you to do fun and interesting things at your game table.
That's very true. One of the other ones in this set that I think is a little bit of a sleeper is correct my pronunciation here, the Ulgrem-Axaan.
Yeah, no, that's a weird crocodile monster that came from, I think that one was in Pathfinder Legends, the Lost Omens book, and
Monsters of Myth. Yeah,
Monsters of Myth. That's right. And but it's got this really cool backstory, and it just seemed like, hey, it's from this region of the world. When are we going to have another opportunity to do this? And it looks enough like a regular crocodile that if you just need one to put in any old swamp or river, it can serve double duty for that too. So it's always nice when a unique named creature or character can also be used for a more generic purpose in case you're playing in a different part of the world, or you don't happen to encounter that unique being while adventuring around Golarion.
And one thing I like about that one is that because it's from the Monsters of Myth book, it's not an adventure book, but in that book they give you so many story hooks, and there's a whole a way to bring this species back to life, since this is like the last one of its kind.
Yeah.
There's a whole quest around it, and so there's all these great stories. Like this one mini could last you quite a few sessions as you're kind of telling this little side mission, which I really love, because a lot of the times we get minis from maybe bestiaries, and there's lore behind it, but it's still up to us to kind of come up with the stories, and some of us are more creative than others. So it makes me wonder, do you take that into consideration when you're picking your mini sets? Like, some of these just have so many great story opportunities that for use with these minis, and maybe want to go mine some of that Monsters of Myth book and those Legends books to kind of bring those characters to life.
Yeah, in a traditional set, we certainly think about that, and this was the case with our previous box that we were talking about, where we had unique characters like Nex and Geb and the god Nethys, where there really is only one of them in the multiverse. In this case, this is a unique creature that would have filled a rare slot in a randomized booster. And so we definitely do think about, if someone buys a case of this and they only get one, it doesn't make a ton of sense for them only to have one crocodile. I mean, maybe you only face one crocodile. I personally would not like to face even a single crocodile, but certainly not more than one. We try and think about, is there enough story? Does this make sense from a collector standpoint and a usability standpoint that someone gets only one of these? Are they going to be disappointed that, for example, the Goblin Raider, you probably want more than that, because their whole shtick is that they attack in giant numbers that overwhelm you, not that this one unique goblin is going to attack you all by themselves. That doesn't necessarily serve their purpose. So that's sort of how we got to this one. When we were putting this together, the Impossible Lands hardcover was still a work in progress. And so that's why we had to go to Monsters of Myth, to the Bestiaries, to some other locations to find the reference art and the information about the minis that we were going to include in the set. Because we knew we wanted to support this book and support this part of the world where we're doing a number of adventure paths over the course of the year, between Bloodlords and Outlaws of Alkenstar. We wanted minis that GMs could use when running those campaigns, but we didn't have those books in hand yet to be able to say, we want you to make a mini of this specific creature right here on page 12. And so that's sort of where we got this one. It was from this part of the world. It had a rich story, and if someone buys this and they say, what's the deal with this? It's just a crocodile. Why does it have a funny name? And then they go on the Pathfinder wiki and they look it up and they find out who this is, and that gets them to buy or check out Monsters of Myth, then that's a double win for us. And ultimately, that's the goal, is to support the brand as richly as possible and encourage people to buy multiple products across multiple lines.
And you talking about the adventure pass, I'm going to reach across here, because sitting on the other side of my table here is something that arrived at my door yesterday, which is the last book in the Bloodlords adventure path, which begs to mind, now that we have the whole adventure path ready to go, are there, either in the Impossible Land sets or in the previous Pathfinder battle sets, particular sets that you would recommend picking up if somebody does want to run this adventure?
Yeah, I mean, it's, like I said, we didn't have that book in hand to be able to order minis of specific characters from them. But I think that you'd certainly benefit from this particular set with all the skeletons. I can't think of very many sets that we've done that didn't include any undead. In Bloodlords, and since we released Book of the Dead in the spring, there are now options for characters to play undead characters, whether that's a vampire or a ghoul or a skeleton or a zombie. You can play as those characters, and Bloodlords is sort of our adventure path that has a narrative that allows you to do that, where you probably couldn't do that as well in Wrath of the Righteous, because all of those paladins are not going to look very kindly upon an undead person walking around among them. In Bloodlords, they're all undead too. We're all undead around here. Who's judging? And so I think that just about any set, it's long out of print, but let's see, what was it called? The Pathfinder Battles Army Builder, or I don't even remember what the name of it was. They were gravity feeds, and there were, I think, 12 unique figures inside, and it had a bunch of different zombies and goblins, and we did one set for goblins and one for undead. And so those undead figures would be really handy at this point. So it's been many years since that was published, but there may still be copies out there for people to find and pick up, maybe even on Paizo.com. I should have done my homework before doing the interview and been able to provide you with a link.
We'll have links down below. Don't worry about it.
Okay, all right. You can find them.
That's the nice thing about not doing this live.
Yeah, so I would look for those, and then the set that we did that had the largest undead theme was probably Ruins of Last Wall, which came out, I want to say 3 years ago. It came out right before Pathfinder Second Edition launched, so I think it was spring of 2019, and that one is full of undead monsters that you can now use as your PCs. So those would be things I would suggest folks give a look.
Yeah, and we'll have up in the corner of the screen up there, you can see our full review of that set, so you can see everything in the set and hear about it. It begs to the question for me, we just recently received probably my favorite Pathfinder Battles product so far, which was the Goblin Vanguard. And one, it's goblins, obviously, but two, it's goblin investigators, and it's a goblin with a crystal ball. Is that something we can expect more of down the line? Is little packs like that? Because that just was magic to me.
Yeah, I think the Vanguards, we would love to be able to do a new Vanguard set every year or two, with a different set of creatures. And maybe they're not always centered around an ancestry. Maybe one of them is Pathfinder Vanguard, and they're all like Pathfinder characters, Pathfinder Society characters, or a Hell Knight Vanguard, or who knows. That particular product template of, hey, here's a non-randomized set of 8 figures all around a theme, really does give us a lot of opportunity to sort of explore stuff that we couldn't build a whole 40 figure set on, but that we can nevertheless give people enough stuff that each figure feels unique. And in the case of the Goblin Vanguard, that really was designed to give goblin characters minis to represent them that weren't just the goblin army builders that you find in sets, like, oh, there's a goblin with a torch, there's a goblin with a dog slicer. Like, yeah, but I'm playing a goblin, witch. So where's my goblin witch character? Okay, well, like you said, there's the one with the crystal ball that could easily be a witch or a psychic or whatever you wanted to do with it. They're a little bit more unique looking, which can give you a lot more options when it comes to characters they can represent.
Oh, I'm so looking forward to seeing what y'all come up with next for that line too. It was just so much fun. But Mark, thank you again for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Many thanks again to Mark for joining us today. Impossible Foes is available now for between $70 and $80. Let me know what you think of it in the comments section down below. You can also pick up Pathfinder Monsters of Myth, which is a fantastic book, for between $30 and $35. And don't forget to grab yourself some animated spells, conditions, or Townsfolk cards from Hit Point Press using our links down below. We've only got 2 more minis to cover in the Impossible Lands collection. What would be 2 premium figures, Mukrati, who's unlike anything you've seen before, and the adult Umbral Dragon, who is definitely a standout in this set. Be sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of those, and if you enjoy our videos, hitting that thumbs up button is an easy way to help us grow and improve. You can pick yourself up a cuddly kobold plushie by visiting koboldplush.com, and you can stalk our every move by following us on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and Mastodon. For now, stay safe, have fun, love each other, and I will see you next time at the Gallant Goblin.